Hey, what's up everyone? It's BeefcakeLynch. Let's play some game. So, getting started on this game, Raft. It's available on Steam right now. Downloaded it. Decided also wanted to have one person in the game with me because usually these kind of crafting and survival games, they can be somewhat repetitive. Sometimes you need a couple extra sets of hands, especially at the beginning of these games where you're sourcing raw materials and trying to get enough stuff together to build some more advanced things. So I did that. Ended up starting my own server. Bootyville will be the name of the server, and Booty was the password. I set all that stuff up. Alright, so once you get into the game, kind of the general premise here is that you're on this raft. I don't know how you got on it. That's probably part of the story, but you have this plastic hook tied to a rope. It's kind of everything. It's your whole life. It's how you get materials that happen to be floating by in the ocean, happen to be floating by your raft, and you do use these materials to craft things. And yes, as you see in my toolbar there, kind of 1 through 8 listed out, or 1 through 9, whatever the amount of number of keys there in the front, is that this hook does eventually degrade as you use it more and more and more. You can see there, Silver-Eyed Viper, my play partners joined my server now, so we can both start putting these hooks into water. And in case you missed it earlier, you just saw it, and every once in a while you'll see it as I'm skimming the water for materials to craft with. There's this a-hole shark, this great white shark it looks like, that also seems to be just fixated on your raft, and every once in a while that shark just plagues you with stuff. It just decides to bite on stuff and kind of wreck your raft, at least the foundation of it, for all the stuff that you're trying to build. Now, is this the only premise of the game here? Is this the only thing you have to do? Actually not. There's actually a bunch of other surprising things you can do in the game, such as you can navigate your raft to one of these huge, sometimes small islands are out in the middle of nowhere. And no, these islands are not places you can set up bases or do any kind of base building at. Instead, they're really resource materials because, like I said before, your raft is pretty bare. It's actually barren. It's like 4 squares or something like that when you first start out, and you have no way to actually navigate. So you'll want to do things like craft a sail. You also want to add more space to your raft, especially around the things that you craft, so that that a-hole shark that you just saw biting on your bare raft cannot break the stuff, or at least the foundation that you've built some of these craft things on. Okay, so after a while, you will eventually get to one of these islands, and do not make the same mistake the Silver-Eyed Viper and I made. Remember I said how you can't navigate, you don't have a mast, you don't have a rudder either, you don't have paddles, you don't have an anchor. So what we ended up doing is actually started just going right by this island. Silver-Eyed Viper decided to go out and swim to the island. As you saw right there, the a-hole shark doesn't just like eating your raft, likes biting you as well. As soon as you step into that water, circles the raft, makes it to where it is very hard to do anything. Usually can last 5, maybe 10 seconds if the shark's distracted, where you don't get bitten. But overall, jumping to the island the way that we're trying to do here, having your partner kind of look at the trees there, and you can see she's desperately trying to just scour that island as I'm yelling out, "We're leaving you!" And you can see her coming through the water. The asshole shark's there. I think he's already gotten a bite out of her. And then, of course, you can swim back to the raft. You can see all the little bubbles. I'm just leaving so much, dust in the wake, water dust. And you get back on the raft. You're kind of beat up. You eat food, things like that, to stave off hunger and thirst. But your health, the health bar in the bottom left there of the 3 bars, that actually just builds up over time. There's nothing you can really do to make that go up any faster. And once you do die, you do have a setting to where you can have all of your items go away and you have to retrieve them, or you can retain all of your items. Actually takes away from a lot of the pissed offness you'll get from that a-hole shark. If you make it to where when you do die, you can respawn, you still at least have the items you had on your possession. You will eventually need to build other things like this handy water purifier that does basically 1 saltwater cup at a time. You'll have to do other mundane things like actually make a plastic water cup to hold that water that you get from the ocean and put into that kind of flame distiller and all that. And you make that with the plastic. So just like I'm gathering leaves here, barrels which will contain scrap metal, plastic, wood, the leaves as well. The plastic bottles, the purple kind of plastic scrap, things like that that you get does automatically get converted into raw plastic that you can use for things like creating those cups and anything else you need, like this plastic hook that I'm using that does in fact get worn down a lot. You'll go through a lot of these plastic hooks. There is a way for you to get other hooks, at least a metal hook later on in the game, but truthfully, it doesn't take a lot of materials to make this plastic hook, and to me it's a lot easier to maintain the plastic hook and keep making them versus doing the stuff you need to make a steel hook. But some of the other things that you'll want to do is that water purification setup. Also, you'll want to do something to make some food. Initially, you'll have the small grill, then you'll get to like a big grill to make 3 things at once, even the water purification. You'll get to a point where you can have something that carries like 4 to 5 cups of water, does not need a flame, it uses the sun, so you have to make glass and other things using a forge. Have to build the forge, get the wet bricks, and a lot of this stuff, you need the islands to be able to get the material to build all of these things. So that brings us to right now and the raft that you see today. And I've rewound the clock back a little bit, kind of showing you the whole build out, the rationale for some of the stuff. You still see I still have the one kind of cup at a time water distiller, and you'll see some baskets here on the edges. So another kind of build feature that the game has is that you can do more than just a platform. You can have like raised platforms, you can have these floaty platforms, you can have just floors, and you can also have these nets. What the nets do is anything you can't get with your hook, if your raft actually rolls over some of this debris material, it actually get captured in those nets, and it'll capture everything. I'm talking the big barrels, the plastic pieces, and there seems to be no limit. So it's not like one item gets caught in the baskets and you won't be able to catch anything else in there. It just stacks up in there. So this is pretty much the game. You end up kind of just coasting through the ocean. You do have a sail set. You can see we did make some paddles, and you are able to help paddle the raft to certain things like this island that we're going to. So what we found to be most successful is you have the sail pointing you in the direction of the island, and there's little handlebars on the sails. You can aim it perfectly in that direction. There's also a little flag, as you can see, that kind of points, tells you the direction of the wind, I should say, but it also seems like that wind direction doesn't really matter so long as you have the sail pointed where you want to go. And we found that one person paddling, monitoring the sail, while the other person makes sure that they gather all the materials that kind of float by, has been a pretty good system for us. You can also see there on the little grill that looks like a C shaped piece of fish. That's actually that a-hole shark. And we determined you can kill the a-hole shark and actually wear its head as a trophy to warn all the other sharks to try to come by and eat your raft. But unfortunately, it doesn't prevent future a-hole sharks from coming and wrecking your raft, even with wearing the trophy. So actually we stopped wearing the trophy. We got like 2 or 3 of them, but the steaks are excellent. They do provide a lot of food for you, but it does take a long time to kill the sharks. Maybe I can show later on in the video what we did to try to help speed up killing the shark. So the islands are kind of crazy. So some of them do have beachheads that you can kind of paddle the raft up to and actually wedge the raft up against the island itself. Some of these you just kind of have to jump off the raft and kind of just make a really quick beeline to where you can actually get up and chop down some of the trees and harvest some of the resources. An anchor does help, but the shark also does attack the anchors if you have it on the edge of the boat. So I have not found those to be super effective. Instead, is having a partner on the raft, keeping it paddled close or wedging it with the sail seems to work the best. On these islands, you obviously can chop down these trees. There's coconut trees, palm trees, you get palm leaf, palm seeds, planks, you get coconuts. There's also watermelons and pineapples that you can harvest individually as the fruit. And then there's these colored flowers that so far, the only thing I've seen to use for those flowers is to create dye so that you can actually have customizations for your raft, the things you build, maybe even your clothes and stuff like that. What I found to be the most useful is just chopping the trees down with just a regular stone axe. You get a lot of the planks, a lot of the leaves. It sure does beat having to use the plastic hook to get a lot of it. And I've actually stopped getting any of those flowers. Also, as you saw here, there's no fall damage. I just kind of jump off the things. I thought it was really cool initially playing this game, and I was playing like I'm on Castaway, and I was Tom Hanks at the very top of the island, kind of surveying stuff and seeing the raft down there. It actually gives a pretty surreal kind of survival, kind of a Castaway feeling when you see the raft and how janky it looks and what you're building from that island. But coming down onto it is actually pretty cool. So I usually come back, I sweep the nets, get all the stuff in my inventory, and then I'll go to a chest and put it into a chest, and we kind of have things organized there. At this point in the raft, we only have the one chest, and you can hold, I don't know, maybe a dozen items. It kind of looks like the inventory slot you see here, about the same size. Actually much less. So 8 total slots. There are bigger chests you can make. You require metal hinges, other things, and just like most crafting games, you have to have the forge, you have to get metal, you have to make ingots, and with that ingots you can make hinges, or it might be out of metal scrap you can make it. Either way, it's a couple step process to make the components, and then after you get the components to make the larger chest. There is no upgrading of components or chests. And the cool thing about this game, well, I don't know if I would even consider it cool, but let's say you're going to remove some of these chests that I'm going in right now. You can totally do that, and it actually puts it into your inventory. It doesn't destroy any of the things that you've built. And instead, you remove them, it goes into your inventory, and you reuse them. There might be a way to break down things. I haven't figured that out yet, but I would certainly appreciate it because you can get back resources when you do that as well. So let's talk about planting stuff in the game. So you can build 3 different types of planters, one for like bushes. I think there's like even a shoe that you can find or something on a fishing pole that you can plant stuff into. You do have to take water from your freshwater kind of distiller, and you have to water the plants with fresh water. You only do it once for the entire grow cycle, so you don't have to really mess with it, but you do have to watch out for seagulls. They always attack your plants as they're growing, and they can totally ruin the crop. You can build a scarecrow to scare them away, but then they attack the scarecrow, so either way you have to get the seagulls kind of off your stuff and kind of watch it. You can also build a box big enough to grow full trees, and so when you go on the islands, as you saw, I got like palm seeds and stuff like that. You can use those to build huge trees, chop them down on your raft, and just really kind of negate the need to go to an island depending on how long it takes to grow those trees and how big your raft is. Now, eventually, you do end up figuring out that these islands have a bunch more resources than just what's on the surface, and that's in the coral reefs around the islands as well. So here you can see me gathering some seaweed. You see the blood on me from the a-hole shark coming up to grab me. Now, you can put a piece of bait into the water to attract the shark and keep him occupied, but that takes 2 different types of fish, herring and a pomfret, I think it is, along with some rope. So didn't feel like building that here, and so just diving down into the coral reefs is a good way to get stuff. You use your plastic hook. You can see me trying to just get some more food before I go back down and get the stuff. But you use your metal hook to get clay, to get sand that's on the floor of the coral reef. On the walls, you'll find copper, you'll find steel. You can see it floating all around, and you can see off in the distance there. There's some seaweed stalks that you saw me gathering the seaweed. You can usually see that stuff like kind of undulating with the waves, and it'll kind of stick out from the waves. You can see it way off there in the distance, just off the tip of my spear there. And so that's where you can see that there's seaweed stalks that you can dive down and get a whole bunch of them, a whole bunch of pieces per stalk. But just be aware, you have to dive deep, and the shark will get you. And so this right here, kind of interesting thing too, we're going to paddle towards this little raft that you see, and you'll find a bunch of these kind of abandoned in the ocean. Kind of curious, they usually have one chest on them, which you'll find sometimes a random chest, like that blue chest you see with kind of the pinkish kind of lid there. You'll find those on the islands as well. You pick them up. You can see I had too much stuff in my inventory, so it dumped out a bunch of the things that were in the chest. But it's really cool, usually crafting material, things like that. But as you can see, Silver-eyed Viper is going down at the ship. The minute you touch those rafts, meaning getting off your raft, you step on that raft or you make too much contact with your character, those rafts immediately start to sink. And so, like in the case we saw just now, don't make the same mistake I make and have too much stuff in your inventory because you can't hold it and it puts it on that raft. For some reason, those boxes sink with that raft. It totally sucks ass. Do not do that. Harvesting plants is always pretty easy to do. You get one potato per every plant that you do, or I think one, or maybe you get a little bit more than one. I think you plant one potato per plant, but you get like 2 or 3. Maybe it's something like that. I can't exactly remember, but this will be totally clutch for you as you start the game, making sure you can plant things, replicate the potatoes, take one potato, turn it into 10 potatoes, and then cook them on your grill, or you can eat them raw. It's very versatile. Pineapples, all that stuff, kind of same way. You can cook certain fruits, certain vegetables, certain ones you eat raw. But overall, this is kind of the game. And before I close on this video with this kind of short review, kind of short intro of it, just one last thing to note. You'll see that I have a lean-to on the raft there in the background. I have some beds behind these crates. You can sleep in this game when it turns nighttime. You saw in some of the gameplay, we were playing through the night trying to get this raft built, at least gameplay night. You can actually just speed all that up by sleeping in that bed, but the trick is you have to have enough beds for every person that's on your raft. So in this case, I have Silver-Eyed Viper playing with me. I have to have 2 of those makeshift beds, and we both have to be laying in them, and then it will speed up the clock, go through the night, but just read, it only speeds up the game clock. Like nothing actually happens in the game. So if you're right next to an island or you're on your way to it and it's taking forever to get there and you think you're going to sleep and wake up like right there at the island, nope, you will be the same distance from that. It will just be the next day. Built a little lean-to over it as well because it seems like shelter is a thing on this. It doesn't affect your health or anything or your food or your water, but it is something you can do, and it did seem to matter, at least for the beds and stuff. I can't remember how. It would still need to put the beds down, but I don't know. Maybe it's just for aesthetics. Maybe I thought it was cool. But as we go on in the gameplay and future videos, you'll see I want to build out this thing into a 2-story raft with probably sleeping quarters upstairs and all the functional stuff downstairs, and then have a way to actually have anchors and other things inside the floor of the raft, and have an exterior just basically right for the shark to mess up and do whatever he or she wants, and I won't get so mad about it. So until then, I mean, this is really the game. As you can see, there are some food issues you have to manage, as I'm going to manage here really quick. But I could see where this game could be incredibly entertaining for people that want to just do the grind of sourcing things, building things, evolving things, researching more things they can build at the research table, just right there on the raft. As you create things, you add it to the research table and it shows you new things you can make now that you have that piece of equipment or that material. People that love to just do that kind of building and not have an end to a game, if there is an end in here, I haven't discovered it yet, but if you don't care about having an ending, this could be your game, making crazy amount of rafts, getting super creative with it. I've seen people actually create a flotilla of just a bunch of rafts with walking planks to each one of them. You can see here we went to sleep, kind of speeds up the clock there as I stated. But they'll have a raft for sleeping quarters, a raft for crafting, a raft for like food prep and stuff like that. So you can get really, really crazy creative with this, which I highly recommend. Future videos, like I said, I'll show you the new raft that we have built out as we're evolving it. And if I do find a storyline here, I'll make sure that I do another kind of tutorial and review of the storyline. So overall, that's it for my review and kind of initial intro of the raft. Really love this game. It's been out since 2018. It is still in early access and it's on Steam right now. But from what I can see right from what my gameplay is so far, I have about, I don't know, maybe 8 hours or so into the game. It's not buggy at all. So 20 bucks on Steam. Highly recommend you checking it out, downloading it, giving it some playtime. If you like what you saw here, please like, subscribe, and comment. Also, please check out my weekly streams on Sunday where I do Fortnite streams with my 2 nephews so they can play the crazy Uncle Beefcake as we destroy other teams in trios and squads, earn skins, and show people how to unlock things within Fortnite that maybe they're having some difficulty doing. So until then, I'll catch you in the next video.